Triumph in Retreat, by Alfred H. Miles. A story of Billy Blue. After the defeat of the French by Lord Howe on the 1st of June, 1794, the French navy was much too shattered to attempt anything like offensive warfare for some time. Notwithstanding this, however, fortune favored France with an opportunity of revenge as early as the following year. In June 1795, Admiral Cornwallis, known in the fleet as Billy Blue, was cruising off Belle Isle when on the 7th he fell in with a fleet of merchantmen under the convoy of 3 ships of the line and 6 frigates. His own force consisted of 5 sail of the line and 2 frigates, with which he made an easy capture of 8 of the enemy's ships, the men of war effecting their escape. On the 16th, however, came the Frenchmen's opportunity of turning the tables, for, as the admiral was standing in towards the land, near the Penmarks, one of his frigates signaled the sighting of the enemy's fleet, which numbered 13 sail of the line, several frigates, 2 brigs and a cutter. The wind at first falling calm and afterwards coming round to the north, the enemy's ships were enabled to get to windward, and the next morning by daylight they were seen mooring on both quarters of the British squadron. During the preceding day and night, the admiral himself had led the retreating ships in the Royal Sovereign, in order that he might be able to take advantage of any favorable opportunity that might present itself in the night for altering his course and getting away unperceived by the enemy. But with daylight he changed his disposition, ordering the 2 heavy sailing ships, the Brunswick and the Bellerophon, to lead, and the Mars and Triumph to form the rear, while he himself, in the Royal Sovereign, formed a connecting link, and was prepared to bear down to the assistance of any of his squadron that might particularly need his help. It was now in the power of the French admiral to have engaged closely, and at about 9 o'clock in the morning, a line-of-battle ship and a frigate opened their fire upon the Mars. From this time, a pretty constant cannonade was kept up, the French ships firing at a distance as they came up, and 3 of the English ships returning it. Such was the bad sailing of the Brunswick and Bellerophon that their fire was quite lost, and they were obliged to keep their course without retaliating. In fact, it became necessary to cut away their anchors and launches, throw overboard part of their ballast, and crowd all the sail they could carry, to enable them to keep their proper place, while the Mars and Triumph continued under easy sail. The day had nearly passed over, and there was no serious appearance of attack. But as the afternoon drew on, the enemy, as if ashamed of having yet done nothing effectual to check the progress, or even to ruffle the majestic steadiness of our little line, seemed to be inclined to close upon the rear ship, the Mars. 2 or 3 of them had forereached upon her beam, and a beautiful 84-gun ship was hauling towards her, as if determined to act as champion, and by arresting one of the ships to bring the matter to an immediate issue, when an incident occurred which completely deceived the enemy. In the early morning, the admiral had called by signal for a boat from the Phaeton, and as her young officer, afterwards Admiral Sir Francis Beaufort, K.C.B., was eagerly springing up the Royal Sovereign's side, he was stopped by the noble old admiral's foot and the words, "Stop, sir, listen, go back immediately and tell your captain to go ahead of the squadron a long way, and when far enough off to make the signals for seeing first 1 or 2 strange sail, then more and then a fleet, in short, to humbug those fellows astern. He will understand me. Go." The Phaeton sailed well, but it took a long time to get to the admiral's far enough, in order to give color and credibility to her signals. At length, about 3 o'clock p.m., she made the signal for a stranger, then 2, 5, and then for a fleet, which was made by letting fly the top-gallant sheets and firing a lee gun. It was well known that the French had copies of our tabular signals, and by them Captain Stopford announced that the fleet was English. The large recall flag, the Dutch ensign, was then hoisted to bring them into the squadron, and when time had been given for the supposed answer, the Phaeton wore round, under easy sail, towards the squadron, thus implying that a fleet of English ships was following her, and passing under the admiral's stern, gave him 3 cheers. By a happy coincidence, 2 or 3 small distant vessels were at that time actually peeping up on the horizon, but the bait had been fully swallowed. A flood of signals was made by the enemy, their fire became languid, and at 6:30 their whole force tacked off to the eastward, leaving our gallant squadron to enjoy the fruit of their bravery and wit. In the official announcement of this encounter, the admiral gives full credit to his gallant companions, as well as to Sir C. Cotton and Sir Erasmus Gower, who, in the Mars and Triumph, bore the brunt of the fray. Of the officers, seamen and marines, he says that, instead of being cast down at seeing 30 sail of the enemy's ships attacking our little squadron, They were in the highest spirits imaginable, and although circumstanced as we were, we had no great reason to complain of the conduct of the enemy, yet our men could not help repeatedly expressing their contempt of them. Could common prudence have allowed me to let loose their valor, I hardly know what might not have been accomplished by such men. Of the admiral himself, we are told that, on the anxious morning, he continued the operation of shaving, dressing, and powdering with his usual composure, and observed to Captain Whitby, in his customary cool and dry manner, that he had been in similar situations before, and knew very well what they, the French, would do. More than once during the day he repeated that sooner than abandon his comrades in the slow sailors, the Brunswick and the Bellerophon, the royal sovereign should go down with her colors flying. Admiral then Captain Cornwallis had previously exhibited great daring in Rodney's celebrated action in 1782, when in the Canada, 74, after having defeated the Hector, a ship of equal force, single-handed, he bore down upon the huge Ville de Paris, and lay her alongside and commenced a combat which lasted 2 hours. A point of honor prevented de Grasse striking to anything short of a flag, but when Sir Samuel Hood came up in the Barfleur, the Count surrendered, having only 3 men, of whom he himself was one, alive and unhurt upon his upper deck. He declared, after the action, that the little red-sided ship, the Canada, had done him more harm than all the rest with which he had contended. The fleet from which Admiral Cornwallis thus escaped were not destined long to boast of their triumph, for on the 22nd of the same month, Lord Bridport, with 14 sail of the line and 8 frigates, fell in with them, and as they indicated no intention to fight him, made the signal for 4 of his best sailing vessels to chase. As there was very little wind, the pursuit continued all that day and during the night. Early on the morning of the 23rd, some of the British ships came up with the enemy, and a little before 6 o'clock the action began, and continued till 3 in the afternoon. The French kept as near their own shore as possible, so that only 3 were captured, the Alexander, which had been taken from the British the preceding year, the Formidable, and the Tigray. The rest of the French squadron escaped into 50 Orient. The loss of the British in this action was 31 killed and 115 wounded. The loss of the French was not accurately ascertained.